pretty serious topic today. It's one that's sort of coming along pretty quick in research, but there's still a little bit left to go. Concussions.
Yeah. Concussion research, I think we're going to look back on now as a period of, like, we're going to look back on, 2005 or 2010 even, as a period of hilarious and alarming naivety. Yep. Like, we look back and go, I can't believe how cavalier we were.
How much we just brushed it off.
About brain injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an area of rapidly expanding understanding, but I think people are still very much living, particularly parents, are living back in, when I played footy I got knocked out all the time and I've turned out fine. Yeah. And there's a lot of that. Like, I feel like we have to explain it quite carefully to parents why we're now so conservative around brain injuries. It's a bit like the person that, it's not a related example, like I remember a bloke who said, I've drunk drive before and I didn't die, therefore it's safe. It's like,
it's an interesting correlation, but it's...
No, it's not. It's just that you had a thing and you survived the stupid thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's a safe thing to
Doesn't mean everyone should go around giving that a crack.
Get a gun, put a bullet in, spin it, and don't die.
See what happens, exactly.
That doesn't mean it's a safe thing to do. So, I think it's really important to talk about. I think it's really interesting. Tell everyone about what we've had the last couple of weeks. We've had 3 kids coming with concussions wanting to train.
It never rains at pause.
Yeah,
we had like months of no concussions, and then kids will come in and like, "Hey, you feeling? Oh, I'm okay. My head's a bit sore. Oh, why's that? Oh, well, I think it was like a light concussion. They always use the word light or little or small concussion 2 days ago, and I'm still a little bit sort of headachy, a little bit sore.
Because the problem is the word. The word, people associate concussed with
unconscious.
Not unconscious.
Yeah, like you got smacked and we're on the ground and had to get
and everything stopped and it was this big drama. Whereas concussion is just your brain slams into the inside of the cranium.
But yeah, there's a continuum. You got hit on the head with a golf ball. So I've had 2 concussions, both in the last 12 months, 18 months now, I suppose. Once I jumped up on a low backboard and hit my head on the backboard and I missed 3 days of work, and that was a smallish one. And again, didn't get knocked out, just sort of stinging stars for a bit and had no real symptoms from it. The second one though, I was playing golf and was standing on the green and Thomas Anderson, I'll name him, pitches the best shot of his life, pitches it up, lands down on top of my head. I'm standing like a metre from the hole. Best shot he's ever played, but it wasn't his turn to hit. And so I was actually properly knocked out that time. There was blood and went to the hospital and so like that. I missed a week of work that time. I think I missed like the full 8 days.
What was your perception of your post that week, of your recovery?
During the week?
After that week?
Fine.
You were back to normal straight away?
I think so. It was hard to tell.
I don't think you were.
Really?
I think for a couple of weeks, you were just not quite, you were like a music track that's just a slightly bit off pace.
Not quite on beat.
You're just not quite on beat for a couple of weeks, yeah. And I didn't want to, and knowing your personality, I didn't bring it up because I didn't want to worry you about where you're at. But I just don't think you were quite yourself.
And you still owe me. Yeah, so I played a lot of sport, footy and basketball, and so I was a kid and I never had any proper head knocks until this, and that week where it's like just go stay home and be bored. It was like,
and the changes can be quite subtle. So my son Max had a nasty concussion where he did get knocked out. So 6 years old, knocked out, hit the ground really hard, slurred speech, blurred vision, vomiting, and straight to hospital, CT scan, the full thing. And that was in Feb, and he's actually still recovering from that.
And when that it's December now.
December, yeah. And he's recovering great. He's going to be fine eventually, but it was a long recovery. And I think what was really interesting for me was reading up on how much it's not just about feeling queasy or being a bit dopey or having working memory losses, all of which were things that happened, but it was his anxiety levels. There was a lot of other stuff that was associated with it, just a disrupted function of the brain.
Do you want to talk about the dopamine stuff?
Yeah.
And his appetite? That's the most
because
crucial for me.
Because we've got another athlete starting up with us who's had a concussion, gone back to playing, and is still experiencing nausea and headaches. And so I think it's pretty interesting. So the head knock caused a disruption where his serotonin and dopamine pathways were altered, and he wasn't actually that sensation of feeling full. Like when he would eat food, he would just eat a full man-sized meal and be like, "Dad, I'm still hungry." Like he just was always wanting more food, and
100%, yeah.
and lots of cuddles. He just wanted to be cuddled all the time, just really seeking that fix of dopamine, which he obviously just wasn't getting.
Yeah, so he's getting the dopamine in there, but it wasn't being picked up by the brain. The brain wasn't accepting and receiving the
so
signal.
interesting. Yeah. So I think the thing that I would like the same approach you should take with another injury you should take with a brain injury, which is that step. What everyone is now recommending is what they call a stepwise return to play.
Yep.
So you have a concussion, you feel a bit nauseous, you don't do anything the next few days. Then the first thing you do is a 10-minute stroll, and during that immediate post-concussive phase, you want to be minimising your stimulation to the brain. So
literally in a dark, quiet room, not thinking much.
Yeah. Or at least doing self-directed activity. So, for instance, with Max, the doctor was very happy with him to play Lego because he said if he gets tired of playing the Lego, he'll put it down. Whereas if you're watching telly, it's stimulating your brain in a passive sense, a bit like if someone had a broken ankle and you strap them into a treadmill.
Right.
Like it's forcing them
to run. Yeah. Whereas if it's like you just walk as much as it lets you, you'll limp and you'll hobble, but then you'll rest.
Yeah. So I think there's that stepwise return to play, that idea of you do nothing, then you do a gentle 20-minute stroll. If you're now fine, proceed to a light jog. If you're not fine...
Or a run, because the jog with the heel strike. Yeah. Jogging is a swear word in this place. But yeah, to a light level run.
Jogging is a swear word. And then proceed to harder stuff, and then eventually scrimmage and game. Yeah. I think that stepwise thing is missed by a lot of people.
The big key with the steps as well is if you have symptoms at a step. So say you get to 5-on-0 practice if you're a basketballer, or you get to just kicking drills as a footballer, and you have any sort of symptoms at that point, and you wake up next day with headaches, or it makes you feel uneasy or dizzy, or whatever it is, you go back to the step before, which might have been the jogging or the running, whatever it was before that step. So you go back a step and you attempt that again, and then you start. So it's not like you're, I'm 4 days in, I'll go back to 3 and then jump to 6. No, you have to go 3, 4, 5 again.
Really competency based, and competency is defined as I did that task and I pulled up great.
Yep.
So that's a pretty common sense roadmap for return to play. The other big thing is involving health professionals, like going and seeing a doctor. The Royal Children's were amazing with Max. They assigned a neuropsychologist. They've done so much. He's got a tutor that's helped him, like that, and they're doing concussion research. So they're keen to get people with concussions in, and you're getting world-class support. So I think that's the other thing is take about. We're so lucky in Australia to have that kind of thing. Like take advantage of that. But I'd like to talk about the kind of epiphany the researchers had, which was that previously
the concussion stuff.
You had to be knocked out.
Yeah, can I talk about that?
Yeah.
Because I've read the book. Concussion, the movie with Will Smith. It's a pretty good movie. It's okay. But the book, have you read it yet?
No.
It will change your life. It's amazing. So Concussion, I've forgotten who the author was, and I've forgotten the name of the actual guy who found chronic traumatic encephalopathy. So CTE is chronic traumatic encephalopathy. So what they did was they found all these brains of these NFL players who'd killed themselves or had some sort of mental disruption in the later stages of their life, took their brains and was like, there's nothing really here. But then when they started looking for a specific protein, they found that all these players had this same trauma-based disruption to their brain, which couldn't be found on a scan, could only be found after they died. It could only be found on autopsy. And so what they found, and they looked back at these players, like, yeah, they had some concussions, but the thing was the repeated subconcussive hits, the little knocks, and you accumulate them over a career, and they cause this. It's a plaque, I think it is.
Yeah, it's a plaque.
Yeah,
it's like that. Alzheimer's. It's something like that. Yeah.
So there's this trauma-based chronic traumatic encephalopathy, this bleeding and damage to the brain, this plaque build-up, which caused them to sort of go off the rails and become delusional.
And they reckon for gridiron players, it's the typical gridiron load is the equivalent of 5 little car crashes a week. Just every week. It's just not particularly big car crashes, but enough. Yeah.
And so I want to call this in a public sphere as well. Gridiron, as we know it, won't exist in 10 years.
It just can't.
It's
indefensible.
Yeah, it's a business and they're fighting hard to keep it alive, but the things they're doing to the brain, especially the linemen, like the defensive end.
Yeah. To fix gridiron, you need to take the helmet. It's such a counterintuitive thing. That's why, like, if you said to me, your son has to play, pick a sport.
Yes. Rugby, boxing, or gridiron, you don't pick gridiron. That's your last choice.
Oh, rugby, that's a hard one, isn't it? I'd pick rugby.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't pick boxing, because that's just constantly Not unless you're going to be really good.
Or like lightweight and just dance all game or fight.
But I'd much rather sport like AFL where there's a risk of horrible concussions, but it's not a daily occurrence. You're not using your head as a battering ram. That head as a battering ram concept.
Because in gridiron, because they've got the helmet, they just use your helmet, get low, get through with your head. And it's like in football, you can't do that because you'll just one play and you can't open. And so having the helmet, and the thing is, people think the helmet protects the brain, but it doesn't, because the helmet is just another skull outside. So it protects you from having your head split open. So you're going to have less likely to need stitches and like that. But the brain still rattles around inside the skull.
I think the helmet's much worse for the brain because when you don't have a helmet, you're much less likely to run towards objects with your head.
Yeah, exactly. And so the brain lives in this fluid inside the skull, inside the cranium, and it bounces helmet or no helmet.
Yeah.
And so the helmet just allows you to...
The only kind of helmet that would work would be like a crumple zone style helmet that actually absorbs the kinetic energy. Like if you had...
It was disposable, like a car.
And it was like one hit and it's like, right, okay, go get another one. You know? Yeah.
So gridiron, like rugby is so much safer than gridiron, even though they tackle just as hard because they protect their heads.
I mean, I think rugby's also going to come under some...
It's not perfect. I'm not saying everyone go play rugby.
At the old gym we were at, there was quite a few rugby players, and one of them had a water bottle, and the club's sponsor was a maxillofacial surgeon. And I was like, anytime your sport has a club sponsor as a reconstructive surgeon for faces, I'm like, anyway.
Yeah.
But so I think what's really interesting is that understanding has now made its way, and the AFL has shown great leadership on this.
Yeah, cutting edge.
They've copped, probably for the last 7 to 10 years, they've copped
the game's ruined, particularly
because they've been made the head sacrosanct. Yeah. And they've been, their duty of care and the amount of research they're putting into it, they've been just tremendous. Yeah. Hey guys, how you going? So
the AFL, and
props to them.
I remember back when it happened, everyone was like, the game's ruined, it's not the same. It's like 10 years when the NFL is defunct and now looks a lot more like rugby or doesn't exist or whatever happens, we'll look back and go, geez, the NFL was smart. Geez, they did a good job, didn't they?
And smart, and just putting the welfare of the players,
doing their duty, if you will.
Yeah. So, but anyway, takeaway.
Sum up, yep. It's a long one, but an important one.
Yeah, so if you have a concussion, seek medical attention straight away. That's just...
Royal Children's, go to the GP.
And a concussion is a knock to the head hard enough that you had some symptoms like...
Seeing stars, dizziness, nausea, headaches, loss of balance, loss of motor control, slurred speech.
Not all those things.
Any one of them. Like mine, when I had my first headache, I just saw stars for the first sort of 20 seconds. I was a little dizzy, but then after that felt fine, even though I wasn't.
Yeah.
The second one, though, I was knocked out for a couple of seconds, and I was quite I felt drunk for a couple of hours. Like the boys took me to the hospital, and I was kind of like, no, fine. But they were like, Toby, you've been a bit weird. And I was being a bit weird.
Yeah.
Because my brain wasn't there. And so the next day, I woke up, was a little headachy, was a little groggy, but I never had the blurred vision, just sort of the out of body, floatiness feeling. But everyone's different. Everyone will have a different one depending on where you get.
So get it looked at, rest, take your time. I think that's the biggest thing. It's just a little more time in that early phase, a little more conservatism early, and you'll go faster in the latter phase.
Yeah, if you get to 7 days and have managed to do the symptom-free, gentle ramping, from 7 till 14 will fly, and you'll be back to hopefully completely normal.
Whereas if you're impatient early, I feel like you end up dragging the whole process out. And we've seen that a little bit, yeah.
Kids will come back to it and it's like, I played, and then it drags on.
And coming, like, for instance, we had to send a kid home this week, we just said...
48 hours, no way.
Yeah, you're fresh off it, we can't have that, yeah. So, look after your brains, because the final message is, it would be a tragedy if a kid had a horrible knee injury where they couldn't play sport again, but the rest of their life moves on quite nicely.
Yeah, you can still have a career and
you can do all that stuff. But if you really damage your brain properly, there's not a lot you can do well without your brain.